Hello. Before we begin the podcast, I would like to acknowledge that False Dichotomy is recorded on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, and that we recognize and uphold the significance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant. We acknowledge that this land is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, and we respect and honor their relationship with this land. We are grateful for the Indigenous people who are stewards of this land and have taken care of this area for thousands of years. As we conduct our research or create art, we are grateful for the opportunity to use these lands and recognize and appreciate the historic and ongoing relationship our Indigenous neighbors have with this land. We promise to honor and respect these lands and the Indigenous people who call them home, and to always continue to learn and work towards reconciliation. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody, and welcome to False Dichotomy, a science and arts podcast. So I'm Sam Majoris. I'm the host of the podcast. I'm a wildlife biologist with a focus in Arctic biology and bioinformatics, but I'm also an artist, and I like acting and writing and just theater in general. So since this is the first episode, I guess just a brief explanation of why I'm making this and what this is. So as being someone who kind of worked both with science and arts, I've met artists who are kind of unsure about science or find it intimidating or cold. And I've met scientists who really look down at art and don't see its value. But I think both are extremely important to our world and both actually work together really well. So for this podcast, I wanted to show how fun and approachable science can be, but also how valuable art can be, both for its own value and also as maybe a tool to communicate the science. So with that little explanation, we'll jump into it. So we have two really great scientists today and two wonderful artists. And the kind of theme for this first episode is just University of Guelph alumni. I went here too in my undergrad and I'm currently here for grad school. So our first guest, we'll introduce the science side first. So first is Oren Janke. She's a terrestrial field entomologist who graduated from zoology at Guelph.
Hello.
Next, we have Ian Thompson. We're currently working in the same lab here at Guelph, and Ian did wildlife biology and conservation in his undergrad, and also did a master's of environmental science.
Hell yeah, hello.
Now we'll jump over to the artists. So first we have Thomas Smith. He's a historian, writer, and actor. Graduated from theater studies at the University of Guelph and is starting his master's in history.
Hello.
And last but not least, we have Oren Bose, graduated from theater studies at Guelph and is the go-to person for all technical theater needs, whether online or in person.
Hello, hello.
All right, so welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Sorry for immediately swearing.
It's allowed. It's okay. I'll do a brief explanation of how the podcast is going to work. You all, of course, know this, but this is for any potential listeners. So we're kind of talk to each scientist, each artist for a couple minutes and just talk about what they're working on or an area they're really passionate about. And then at the end, they're going to have to work together to create some kind of art piece to communicate the science, and really can be anything that they can think of, whether it's a pitch for a play or really anything. So let's just get started. And I guess we'll start in the order you were introduced. So Oren, we'll talk to you first.
I'm so honored.
So what work are you doing currently as a field entomologist?
Right now, I currently work for the Center for Biodiversity Genomics at the University of Guelph. And I'm actually I'm a junior field technician. That's my official title. But basically what I'm doing right now is just preparing for some awesome field work that we're going to be doing up in the Yukon. So I'm leaving actually in less than 2 weeks. And I'm going up to the Yukon, and I'm just going to be collecting terrestrial insects. So that includes putting up a lot of different types of traps to get a lot of different types of insects. And what we're trying to do with that is get a huge database of what insects are actually in the Arctic. So the samples will go back to the University of Guelph, where they're going to be DNA barcoded, which is a really, really awesome way of kind of figuring out which species are which without needing super technological, like really technical taxonomic work, because every single species has a different DNA barcode of this one region of mitochondrial DNA. So yeah, basically, I'm at the very beginning of that process, and I'm the one going out there and collecting the samples. But I've done basically the whole process now in different labs at U of G, and yeah, it's pretty fun.
So you just like scan the bugs, DNA, and be like, oh, well, this is obviously if you scan them, you would know this is, you know.
I go to the local Loblaws and I steal their scanners, and then I just scan the bugs. Yeah, no. So basically, like to really summarize it, like really just like in small words, you just, or in like not taking up too much time, I mean, like, so you tissue sample them basically. So you collect them. They are dead, and you tissue sample them. And from that tissue sampling, you can get sections of DNA by using different molecular methods, basically. And then what you do is you put that through a big machine that tells you which ACGT it is in order. And then you basically just use that big strand and you compare it against other things. And the different ACGT, the different strands will tell you which different species they are and how different they are from other ones. Am I explaining this well, Ian and Sam?
Yeah, I think you're doing good.
That's basically DNA barcoding, and it's really cool because one of the big issues of the insects is that they're so cryptic. We just don't know very much about them. And so there's not taxonomists that work on every single type of insect ever. So DNA barcoding kind of alleviates that issue in that it helps us figure out which species are different from other ones without needing that super technical taxonomic expertise of someone who has studied that thing for 10 years and, you know, can tell this little black beetle from that little black beetle. So we just don't have money or resources to do that, unfortunately, for every single insect out there.
Yeah, and as someone who's like worked on insects and tried to find trees in like the literature and stuff, it's like non-existent for a good chunk of stuff. So it's definitely super important and helpful.
A lot of the taxonomic work that I've done has been like using papers from the early 1900s. So it's kind of difficult because first of all, they speak very different English from us. Like it's different in that way. And then there's so much jargon. Like I'm really passionate about scientific communication and being able to describe things that I'm doing in ways that people can understand. But that's a pretty new concept, I would say. So these papers from the 1900s, like they don't really help you.
There's a lot of scientific superiority going on back then. They really didn't want just anyone just picking up a textbook and understanding, you know, what DNA even is, you know?
Yeah, and that's exactly the opposite of how I feel like most of the scientists that I know feel nowadays. Like we all really appreciate scientific communication.
Yeah, if only scientific literacy was more common, huh? Wouldn't have many anti-vaxxers running around.
Yeah, actually, the COVID situation right now is a perfect example of why we need scientific communication. Because there's people going around and spreading misinformation because they just don't understand what scientists are trying to say.
Yeah. So you said you've just like been involved with various aspects of that whole barcoding process. Do you have like part of it that was your favorite to do, or like what do you prefer to do when it comes to lab work, field work, and stuff like that?
Definitely fieldwork is my favorite. I mean, from a really young age, I was always just loving to be outside all the time. So I'm actually going back to school to get my master's in forestry, which will also allow me to continue on with fieldwork. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I sat down one day and I was like, what is really important for me in a job? And the number one thing was being outside. So that's kind of why I like field work so much, because I'm able to get outside. I'm an outdoors person. I don't know. So anytime that I'm outside, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you have a favorite insect? Like, what's your favorite kind of study taxa or species?
I like beetles because beetles arguably are the most diverse. But a fly taxonomist will tell you something different.
Yeah.
And that's ironic because I used to be a fly taxonomist. But I just think beetles are cool. You know that meme? I just think they're neat.
I like. What's your thing? I like bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boards
90s
of Canada. Oh God, those. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. What's your
bugs.
thing?
That's
But yeah.
right there.
I like beetles because, in my opinion, I think they're the prettiest. They got those hardened outer shells. They still look really pretty when they're in ethanol. So I don't know. I don't know.
Even when they're soaked in 100% pure alcohol, they.
Yeah.
Dead but
Things
still
like
cute.
butterflies and flies and stuff like that, they just kind of like, they're soft-bodied, so they kind of get destroyed. So I feel like because
oh no, the butterflies destroyed alcohol. They're
no.
pathetic.
Who would have thought, right? But no, I mean, like, a lot of sorting work is sorting insects in ethanol. So I feel like because I've seen so many pretty beetles in ethanol, maybe I'm biased because of that. But anyway, yeah.
Ian's just waiting with a rebuttal.
Wait, did you say me?
Yeah, you got all those butterflies on your wall there, you know.
I do. I am a fan of a good butterfly. More so moths. I think they're super cool.
Mm-mm. Moths are superior. I agree. Moths are great.
Right. But I am truly an aquatic entomologist, so I am. I don't even think land bugs are cool. So I'm kidding.
That's how me and Ian differ. He's an aquatic entomologist and I'm a terrestrial entomologist. So if we like fuse together like Steven Universe style, we're like the ultimate entomologist.
But yeah, I do actually love beetles. I think there's the I can't remember whose quote it is, but it's like when God created the earth, he had an ornate fondness of beetles or something like that.
And an ornate fondness of beetles. That was about Charles Darwin, wasn't it?
I think so. And I think that's like for one in 4 animals, there's a beetle, basically.
Yeah.
Just so diverse. So
they're so diverse, so abundant, and we just don't know like anything about them relative to other taxa. So that's why entomology, in my opinion, is just so cool, because there's so much to learn still. And it's a great way to study things like ecology and diversity. And that's kind of how I got into entomology in the first place, because I was passionate about those things. And then I realized that this was a great avenue for me to do that.
Yeah, there's like tens of millions of beetles, and, you know, you gotta catch them all, huh?
And I will see every single one of them.
Every one.
Yes.
Give them each a kiss.
Yeah.
So you've talked a bit about how science communication is important. Do you have like any other experience with like doing outreach in science communication?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest ones that comes to my mind right away actually is Guelph Bug Day, which was a community event that I helped run for 3 years. It's actually still ongoing. Due to COVID, it's virtual now. But yeah, it's basically a community day where a whole bunch of entomology students, it started from Sarah Dolson and Matt Mazzotti, who were 2 master's students, one in the School of Environmental Science and one in Integrative Biology, kind of the two places where the entomology peeps will be. And they were like, we want to give back to the community. There were other Ottawa bug days and London bug days, and they felt really passionate about it. And so a bunch of us entomology people got together, and basically we, in the Guelph Arboretum, we had this big event where families could come and learn about insects in a lot of different ways. So we had things like insects and food, so cookies made with cricket protein, and there were some live insects that we had there.
Terrifying for the live insects.
Yeah, exactly. They looked at the cookies and they were like, oh.
If you misbehave, this could be you.
And later on, we also had some more academic involvement. So we had some lab posters, but we tried to keep it more visual and more scientific communication. And actually, Ian and I ran a workshop.
Cool.
The 3rd year that Guelph Bug Day ran, and that was really fun because we kind of got to teach people how to pin insects, because I think that's a pretty like specialized thing that you don't really learn about. So it's really cool to just kind of teach people about that, and Bug Day was always really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
You helped out with Bug Day, didn't you?
I was supposed to, but I ended up not being able to. Like, I had a conflict at the last second.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I always thought it was super cool and wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
Sammy was doing Aquatic Bug Day.
Actually, that was another booth. We had a bunch of aquatic insects. I'm pretty sure, like, Ian, you went out and collected them, didn't you?
Yep. I got it.
Nice.
Always in a stream. That's if I'm not at home, I'm just in a stream or the lab, I guess.
Water boy.
Just like soaked to the bone.
Soaked to the bone. Just there's not beetles. There's aquatic insects just covering my body. Yeah, it's my true.
Your final form.
Yeah.
So we'll do one more question. Because a lot of people are involved in both the science and the arts. Do you want to talk about any like arts you're involved with or like really love?
Yes, actually. I am very passionate about Carthaginian war elephants. So in my undergrad, I dabbled in history, and I took, I was a history major for a hot second there, and then dropped it because I just realized I wasn't really going to go into history. So there was no point in doing a whole other year.
A lot of classics with Walsh.
Yeah, so I took a lot of classics with Walsh because Dr. John Walsh is the best, like,
a magical creature.
Best professor. He's amazing. His classes were great. So there was this one class that we were learning about. I think it's the Second Punic War. It's been a couple years, but it was the war that the Carthaginians brought all their elephants across the Alps to attack Rome.
Yeah, Hannibal, right?
Yeah, Hannibal. And I remember just sitting there and being like, war elephants. Carthage was in the north of Africa. African elephants can't be tamed. What were these elephants? And so I went into this deep dive about Carthaginian war elephants and the taxonomy of them. And I actually learned that these war elephants became extinct because Rome actually exploited them. And they were actually like a subspecies, or there's kind of still, they're not quite sure, but they think it's a subspecies of the modern day African elephant that became extinct because of, Roman exploitation. So that was very fun. And it was interesting too.
Elephants. Not for the elephants.
No, it wasn't fun for the elephants, but it was really interesting being able to, utilize my scientific knowledge in looking at something completely different from what I actually studied. And so, yeah, Carthaginian war elephants, they're really cool.
That's super cool.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways you can integrate your knowledge of different things into other things. Interdisciplinary research.
Yeah. So maybe now we'll jump over to our other scientist, Ian.
Hello.
So what kind of projects are you currently working on?
I think the question is, what am I not working on? No, I'm kidding.
Busy bee.
Oh gosh. Where do I start? I guess, so right now I'm currently working in the same lab as Sam. So currently I'm actually working on an industry project. So like Lauren was mentioning with the DNA barcoding, currently working alongside an environmental consulting firm that's local in Guelph, and we're working with them to integrate DNA barcoding into basically just into biomonitoring of potential effects that pulp and paper mines might have on local ecosystems. So currently right now I'm doing a little bit of a lab grunt, kind of just working with bugs hands-on, putting them in plates and stuff. But overall just working to kind of integrate DNA barcoding into more of an industry perspective, that kind of where right now it's more focused on taxonomy. Taxonomy still has its benefits within industry, and it's really it's a really amazing skill to be able to identify like really like hard to identify specimens, I guess, and especially with aquatic insects. I've actually had my own practice with identification of aquatic insects, which I've done for a job in the past as well. But yeah, it's very difficult, and we're currently working with like a taxonomist who's been doing it for 40 plus years. but he's one of very little. And so we're trying to kind of integrate DNA barcoding into this industry, just so that we can make science a little bit more accessible and make these new methods of molecular identification a little bit more available for industry scientists. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. That makes a lot of sense. You don't want to rely just on people who spend their whole lives studying something. It's not very feasible for a lot of research.
Yeah. And I guess another thing that I'm kind of working on right now is I just finished my master's. And for my master's research, I am studying eDNA. And the fun, long scientific term is eDNA metabarcoding. But basically, I'm actually doing some informatics work, looking at a bunch of data that was collected but not actually wanted. So it was a bunch of stream eDNA. So somebody took a water sample and they were looking for invertebrates, and they got a bunch of algae and bacteria and fungi. So I'm currently working right now to actually look into those communities and see kind of what the value is of this data that kind of gets like traditionally thrown out, really. So yeah. And that's kind of what I'm really working on right now, I guess.
Yeah, that's really cool. Can you give like a brief description for the listeners, like what eDNA is
and
how you find that?
Yeah, so eDNA is a very new field. There's a lot to know and a lot to still research, but it's basically it's a method of collecting specimen details and potential diversity and species that are present in an environment without actually killing those specimens. So traditional methods often require you to take full samples. Like, so for example, if you're collecting aquatic insects, you often take a kick net and you kick some specimens and some debris into a net, or you'll take a grab of that debris and the benthic debris, I guess it's called. And then you traditionally will preserve that in ethanol, and then you have to sort through and kind of identify those. But with eDNA, for example, in water, you can take a water sample, filter it through a very fine mesh filter, and you can amplify any type of DNA fragments that might be present on the filter and in the water column.
Nice, that's super cool.
Yeah, it's super cool because it's a little. I like the fact that it's less invasive, and you can just get a better. You can get a glimpse of the biodiversity present in a system without actually having to like necessarily have that much of an impact. So
that's awesome.
eDNA is super cool as well, just because you can get a lot of data.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to already have things like a barcode library where you already know where specific things are, like taxonomists work with like molecular biologists and they identified this thing and they have the DNA barcode, then you would take your eDNA samples and you could match it with that and figure out what's in there, which is just super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually recently I'm working on currently in the informatic methods that we're kind of focusing on is the difference between clustering these sequences you get to kind of see to get like these what are called operational taxonomic units. And so we cluster by a certain threshold that tells us like, okay, if these two sequences are within this 97% similarity, then we can consider those to be this like from the same like proxy species. But I'm currently looking just at the sequences and not the OTUs. And it's crazy to think how many sequences you end up with. I currently have like 30 sites and I have 7 million sequences, which then like, because the quality of the DNA sometimes can be a little bit not great, you end up with a lot less, but I still have 24,000 clustered sequences that we're working on currently using those reference libraries Oren was talking about to get an idea of what potentially is in the samples.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a lot of like information to work with, a good resource to like get a lot of new information. So I asked Lauren this question. I think I need to ask you too. What's your favorite insect to like look at and work with?
I have, oh gosh, that's such a hard question.
It's like asking your favorite child.
Yeah. I gave birth to all of these insects. No. No, I guess it changes on the daily, I think, for sure, because I'm lucky enough that in the lab work that I'm doing, I get to kind of go through and sort through all of these different aquatic insects. And we have a camera in the lab that Oren actually trained me on, which takes images at different focuses, and you get this like really beautiful image of like a really small specimen. But I will say my favorite are, it's a type of caddisfly that creates, with little tiny sand flecks and pebbles, it'll create a little conical kind of shell that it lives in. Yeah, so it looks like a snail.
It's like a little house.
Yeah. They're so cool. And these ones are really small, but you find them in streams, and I love streams, so those are my favorite, I think.
Yeah, those are a good choice. They're super cool. I remember looking for a lot of those up in Churchill.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of how I got started in the same lab that the salmon are in. We went on that Arctic field course, and I got kind of more introduced into aquatic insects through Camille, who was a grad student on our trip, and I just remember he had the waders, and I thought that was so cool, and I wanted to do that. So at one point, I just was like, I'm going to get in. Can I wear these? And then I got to see all the caddisflies, and I got really, really hyped about them. So.
And now you're in. You can't get out.
No, I know.
He literally can't get out of the stream. He's stuck in mud.
Yeah, he has to flood his house to like maintain his degree. If ever he's not like a little bit like soaked in water, the university takes it back.
I sweat a lot. No.
Covered in caddisflies.
Yeah.
The dream.
Honestly. Well, the other thing too is the moths. They kind of come when you're trying to collect them, terrestrial moths and creatures. You kind of do UV traps at night, and so you can catch caddisfly adults that way as well, which is kind of cool.
So you say terrestrial moths, like are there aquatic moths?
I realized I said that, and that doesn't make sense. I will say there's one that I know of, an aquatic Lepidoptera larva, and Lepidoptera is butterfly and moths. I actually don't know if it's a moth or a butterfly, but it's called Paraponyx. Super cool name.
I like it.
Yeah, and because there's not a lot of aquatic leps, which is kind of funny because they're very closely related to caddisflies. And caddisflies are almost exclusively aquatic in a larval stage. So
yeah, the cool thing about caddisflies is that they're aquatic in their larval stage, but then they're terrestrial in their adult stage. So there's a lot of insects that kind of cross over.
And they're cool and all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Dragonflies do the same thing, don't they?
Yeah.
They're aquatic, and then dragonfly larvae, they're terrifying. They are vicious little
They look
bastards.
like little demons, little
Yeah.
aliens.
Yeah.
I love dragonflies though. They're cool.
They have this. I don't know if you know about their mouths, but they have that. Basically, it's like a claw.
Yeah, the alien like that.
Another fun fact about dragonflies: they actually, when kind of scared or when they need to go fast, they propel air out of their butt, basically.
Me too.
Don't we all?
Yeah, so they're gassy and fast. So.
That's what they called me in high school.
Yeah, it's the name of a good band right there.
Yeah.
Do you guys, are we gonna start a band? Is that what this podcast is about?
That's our project.
I got a little mouth harp on my desk here. Just start clanging away, and
I can like croak like a cricket or something.
oh well. So please show us.
No.
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 Okay, we'll
I'll
save
save
that for
it
the
for
end. Yeah.
I'll save it for the theater.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right, we'll ask one more question, the same as I asked Oren. What arts do you like to create or really love, or?
Oh. I mean, I don't. Oh my gosh! I guess I wasn't prepared for this. I should have prepared.
No, it's okay.
So in my undergrad, I was part of Curtain Call. But funny enough, I actually did a little bit more behind the scenes stuff, more so just like administrative things. But yeah, I've always kind of loved theater, and I'm always kind of a crafty person. I honestly, one thing that I love, which is kind of not at all close to entomology, is fashion and create and like and design and stuff like that. So I recently, as a pandemic project, got into sewing, and so I started with masks, and slowly I'm hoping to make my own clothes one day. So
Ooh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
Do a little thrifting and reclaim like a drape or something, turn it into a shirt. Again, why not?
Absolutely. So when I was making masks for family and friends, I would just buy sheets and just reuse those. So, because I mean, if it's just a single sheet, nobody's really gonna. Usually, people want to match, but
He's being so humble. He is like the thriftiest king I know. He's so good at thrifting and like turning things into something cool.
I don't actually. I think it's been a long time since I've actually purchased a brand new article of clothing. Pretty much source all my stuff from thrift stores, and I actually one day will hopefully open up a little like kind of thrifty store online of just like kind of just things I find and stuff like that. So.
Dead bugs.
Dead bugs. Actually,
my jewelry I made.
Dead bugs and drapes.
Actually, we have another friend who makes resin jewelry with insects, which is a cool integration of arts and science.
Tommy and I know someone who does taxidermy. You guys should link up and start banging out lots of little figurines and stuff. Why not?
Oh, I love that.
I mean, I don't know if you could see it, but right there is my insect collection. I think.
Oh, I thought that was like a board with like it was like one of those things where you put like a custom message on, but no, that's insects, isn't it?
Is that your insect collection from undergrad?
Yeah. Do you still have yours?
I do. I have it's not as fun, but I have an aquatic insect collection too, because I took this whole class that was just specifically for aquatic insects. So I have like, I think 75 little vials of just like random aquatic insects that I collected and identified. So.
Yeah, now you just need, what is it, like 29 million something, and your collection will be complete.
Then he's a Pokemon master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we'll jump over to the like arts side of things now with Thomas.
Hello.
What like aspects of theater and arts are you most focused on?
So right now, I'm currently a research assistant with the Canadian Writing and Research Collaboratory. And that's all preparing me because I'm going to be doing my master's in history. But for my undergrad at the University of Guelph, I was a theater major. And so the main aspects of theater that I really liked throughout the 4 years was acting as well as writing. And I found, especially in my later years, I really enjoyed like screenwriting as well as writing for performance and stuff like that. And so for my master's, I'm hoping on bridging the gap between like history and theater by looking at like early modern London. And so with my advisor, we're going to be looking at the Lord's Mayor Day performances, and I hope to do something fun with virtual reality.
Super cool. Do you know kind of like what that virtual reality like might look like what things will be incorporated or included in that?
So we're still deciding on whether or not it's going to be like a toured virtual reality experience, or if it'll be a standalone experience, like whether or not it's something that you can explore like individually, or if it's just like a sedentary location where you can just experience a historical event around you. It's probably going to be just a sedentary experience with not a lot of locomotion, just because of constraints with budgets and like the experience with virtual reality and Unity and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. So like when it comes to writing, do you have like a preference when it comes to like screenwriting or like stage kind of writing and like the differences between that?
I think that right now I prefer writing for the screen, like screenwriting. It's probably just because the most recent course that I took was a screenwriting class. But I find as though like while I love theater and like acting on stage as well as musical theaters, I find that writing for the screen opens up a lot of like the possibilities when it comes for creativity. Like with the theater, you have to consider a lot of realism, and I like the escapism as well as like the creative unrestraint that comes along with screenwriting. It's a lot easier to write in like magic, and as someone that really loves like science fiction as well as fantasy, the magics and the magical realism that comes with like science fiction are a lot more difficult to portray when it comes to like a theatrical setting.
It's a lot easier to have someone, the audience, suspend their disbelief that you're throwing a fireball at someone with CGI than it is throwing a beanbag at someone and you're basically LARPing on stage in front of an audience of 100.
Wait, you mean you don't set it on fire first?
Yeah, funnily enough, we care about safety at the theater program. It's shocking, I know, but
Thomas, I actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
What draws you to London specifically?
That's London. It was my advisor, who I greatly respected. In I work like the Canadian Writing Research Collaborative was birthed from the Humanities Interdisciplinary Collaboratory Lab, and so we're working in there. I met Dr. Kim Martin, who right now I'm involved with one of her research projects, as well as Sam's involved with it, where we're like using VR stuff and VR experiences. And so I was hoping to continue my research and playing with like this virtual experiences, and her specialty that she did her undergrad and her master's is in early modern London. And she knows a lot of people with the Map of Early Modern London, which is like a project that specializes in things like theaters and social places and like the culture of early modern London. And it just sounded fascinating to me, so I've agreed to learn under her.
It sounds really similar in that, like, that's kind of a tool of like a way of studying what you want to look at, like with VR, in the same way that I wanted to study ecology, so therefore I used insects, kind of.
Yeah, one of the games actually that I was playing around with was visualizing different protein structures, and I don't know like the scientificness of it, but I was reading like literature analysis of it, of how like visualizing like the structures of proteins can lead for better gene therapies and other medications and stuff like that. And it's fascinating how quickly the subjects, like the arts and stuff like that, because virtual reality is a lot of like performance and like body movements and stuff like that, and like I thought it goes together very nicely.
You can go
Basically
out
what
and you can pet a protein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What Tommy's saying is we got to get Lauren and Ian in the old VR lab and have them start working with handling the bugs, juggling them around.
Yeah, can we get
shooting a little a beetle, a 3-pointer into the ethanol bucket,
And then setting it on fire and throwing it across the stage.
Yeah, fireball. Oh my god, fire beetles? Yo, that sounds like a spell. I'd cast that in D&D. Wait, what's Thomas's favorite bug?
My favorite bug?
Do you have a favorite bug?
I'm a big fan of the I really like lunar moths. I really like Lepidoptera. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with a movie called The Blue Butterfly. I don't know if any of you heard it, but it's a very, very low budget Canadian movie about a little boy discovering new butterfly species. And that made me like obsessed with bugs as a kid. But I also like I don't remember the name, but like they're moths that are in Ontario that are like pink and yellow.
Oh, they're rosy maple moths.
Those ones.
Yeah.
I think those ones are beautiful.
This is why we hang out with entomologists. He's like, oh, what's that bug?
That one.
It's got these colors. Oh, well, obviously it's the rosy maple moth.
I was just gonna say, at being an entomologist, I always get people just like giving me the briefest description of some random speck of an insect they saw, and I have so many people who will say like, yeah, I saw this. It looked like a bee. It was yellow and it had this, and I just literally search their exact description and then just go through Google Images.
Don't tell them our secret.
Sorry.
Don't tell them our secret. No, my favorite is like, I think it's so endearing when people send me a blurry ass picture of like a tiny speck on the wall and they're like, what is it?
Taxonomist hate this one simple trick.
One simple trick. Use it. Go. It's like how a ton of like doctors like will use Google to look up illnesses.
I also think it'd be really cool if I could have like, I know why there's like laws and stuff for it, but I would love my own like Madagascar hissing cockroaches.
Oh yeah.
I think they're really cool and like.
What? There's laws against that?
Yeah, there's hardcore laws. Thanks, Department of Agriculture.
They just have so many babies, and then they could be so potentially invasive that there are a lot of laws.
They'll just keep them,
There's an alternative though. You can buy praying mantises at Home Depot.
At Home Depot?
Yeah, $15 for like 400 eggs or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Let's go to Canadian Tire. Wait, no, Home Depot.
Home Depot. No, at Canadian Tire you only get 200.
Yeah.
For the same price. It's
better price at Home Depot.
It's not cost effective.
When I was younger, I actually bought. You know how at the reptile stores they sell the little insects that you use for feeders.
Yeah.
I raised my own super worms into beetles, and like I had a little beetle who like was like one of my favorite pets I ever had, and I had her for like 2 years until she passed away. And like I also had my own crickets. I had a cricket named Jiminy that I had for many months, and I grew my own. I think is it the horned worms that that you can buy at the reptile stores. Mm-hmm. You can only feed them like mulberry leaves. And I remember that I went to the store because I had hornworms as pets. And so I was buying this mulberry paste directly from like the reptile store because I wanted to keep my pet worms alive.
Wholesome hours.
Yeah.
So, I love insects.
They're so cute. I think that people just like, people get scared of them, and I think it's just like, it's very much just like a
social thing. Like we're just not to. I mean, there are some insects that like you should genuinely be afraid of, like have a healthy fear of.
Hey, you know what?
But it's like it's the same as like I have a healthy fear of bears. It doesn't mean I don't like bears. Like I'm not gonna go out and
Actually, this is a random fact, but because you know how everybody's always scared of Australia because they have like so many like poisonous like things and like especially insects, tarantulas, all that kind of stuff. Apparently, Australians are scared of Canada because of like bears and like large moose.
You know what? Moose are genuinely terrifying. If you're not afraid of moose, you should be.
I lived out west and I had Aussie roommates, and they shit their pants when they saw a moose. Like, it was the most exciting thing ever. Honestly, though, I would also shit my pants if I saw a moose. They're so cool.
So we already kind of got into, like, I was going to ask you for your last question, what, like, you liked about science and stuff like that. We kind of got into the whole insect thing already. But you did a bit of science when you first came to Guelph and then kind of, like, switched to theater. Do you want to talk about kind of, like, that transition and what made you, like, kind of want to, like, do more of the arts?
Yeah, so my initial game plan for university was I wanted to come for biology and like the Biodiversity Institute. But I was also like heavily drawn to theater just because I loved acting and like performing in high school. And then the very, very end of my high school, I did earth sciences and like a geology class. And so I was drawn between these three things. So when I came to Guelph, I finally decided to do a Bachelor of Arts in Science. And to try to mend everything together, my art side of the BAS was in theater studies, and then the science part was in, what is it,
GIS?
environmental analysis and geographic information systems, I
Mm.
believe is the minor. So because I was hoping to do all the GIS and like somehow blend them together, but I found that I didn't like the lab work of like all the technical aspects of learning about geographic information systems. I was not a fan of like working in the lab all day. And it's actually coming around full circle, because right now for my research assistant job, I am researching the ontologies that are used for linked open data when it comes to geographical data, because I was the only one that had any experience with geographical information systems.
Sounds like you're just like the perfect person for this job.
Yeah.
So
The stars aligned, and suddenly Thomas is like, wait, are you telling me I'm an expert in everything I need to be to do this exact thing?
So my years in like 3 years in a row of taking the advanced geographic information systems classes came in handy, because now I'm doing geographical analysis, but from a arts perspective.
Super cool. And I guess we'll go on to our last guest here, Oren.
Howdy.
Yay. So what aspects of theater do you focus on?
So I'm very much a sort of I don't want to say like I'm a one-trick pony, but like I'm very invested in the arts. Not that I don't have a very lifelong interest of science and learning, but it's certainly not what I've pursued in higher education, because I don't like writing papers and doing lab work.
That's fair.
It is not what I was.
Neither.
It's not what I was built to do. What I was built to do, however, is construction and scenic carpentry. I came to the University of Guelph with a goal of being a sort of actor and director, and I've now exited as of this May, realizing that while acting is fun and directing is fun, I have a very intense love of basically being the catalyst by which designers and very much like creative head in the clouds coming up with these amazing ideas, like helping those sort of people realize their visions. That is where I've sort of found my place, and I am very happy with sort of being that catalyst, right? So, I've done some design work and taken some like drafting classes and stuff like that, but I am perfectly comfortable with the fact that I'm just much better at helping people realize their own visions. So mostly I focus on working with wood and building sets and stuff like that, but I've dabbled in many other forms of like set construction or prop building. All of that is of a lot of interest to me, using different materials. Thomas and I, oh God, it's like almost 2 years ago now. We got to work on a set where a lot of it was actually dressed with cardboard, and that was part of the sort of the design and stuff of the set. So yeah, my skills very much lie in the the technical aspect of it. I've done some sound. I've dabbled in like every sort of all the disciplines of technical theater, but yeah, scenic carpentry is really where I've staked my claim.
Cool. Is there like a favorite thing that you've built or like production, like set you really loved?
The Lion in the Streets, the design for that iteration of the play was incredibly challenging and fun, and I got to do so many like lots of lathe work, so like turning spindles on a lathe to create a whole pulley system, creating a giant like basically 8-foot diameter mobile that ran on this custom pulley system to spin at certain points of the play, having fly walls, which are basically floating walls that can rise and descend at different points, again using different pulley and rigging systems. Just like so many like challenges and that was probably the favorite production I've been able to build, just because like it was like all this cool stuff, you know. A lot of other productions, like there's one or two things that you're like, oh, that's really cool. Like we for Millennial Malcontent, which was I think in my second year, we had these like market stalls, which were they rode on top of pneumatic like pressurized casters, which are basically like wheels. And so you basically flipped a switch and a pressurized air container inside would like lift them off the ground, and you could roll them around. And then if you flip the switch again, it would anchor itself to the ground and be unable to move unless you wanted to like tip it over. That, you know, that was fun. But like for Millennial Malcontent, like Lion in the Streets, that the entire set was just a joy to build. Yeah. Rigging is always fun, you know. Who doesn't love being like 13, 14, 15 feet in the air with the only thing stopping you from falling is just like a metal bar between your legs as you lean over the void.
Yeah, Lion definitely had a lot of cool like tech and set features and stuff like that. I know from lighting it had some cool moments and stuff like that as well.
The lighting for that was like every bit of tech for that show, like all the costumes, the props, the media, like you know.
Funny enough, I actually got my start in theater from like tech. I literally used to be in charge of the lighting board at my high school, and that's how I ended up doing theater. I did all the theaters and I did all the lighting for them. And then that's when I was like, you know what, hell, I'm gonna get into a musical. So I was in Alice in Wonderland.
Nice.
Were you Alice?
I was actually, yeah. I was Wonderland.
Oh,
I love, and actually, with being behind the scenes in CCP, I always did my favorite. I'm not gonna lie. I hope this doesn't hurt you, but my favorite thing was to like do like set destruction at the end of.
Oh no! But I'm right there with you. There is nothing more cathartic than destroying something I've built, and it sounds so strange. Like no? It's very different for like. If it was like something personal I built, like if I built a desk, I would never want to destroy it. But the fact that it's for theater, it falls in this weird sort of like gray area where I love strike. I love leading a strike. I love telling people what to destroy. I love just ripping it apart and then going and getting shit-faced with the rest of the crew.
Yeah, literally.
It is the most like it is the like definition of catharsis for me. Is like all this like every like problem, shortcoming, frustrating thing that happened, you get to take all of that out and it's just like resolved in your brain and you're I love strikes. No, everyone who's really into like theater and tech, they love strikes because it is your way to take any bit of frustration out with that production. It allows you to like let it go, you know.
I also just love, I remember for one, I did like a lot of executive work for Sweeney Todd the year that they did it.
That set, I'm envious for not being able to work on that. That slide,
it was.
I really wanted to have built that.
It was good.
So cool. But I also was behind the scenes for all of the safety stuff. One of my good friends was in charge of kind of all of the I guess all the smaller crews. So she was in charge of like all of the props crew and the costume crew and all that kind of stuff. But I just remember just like the all of the things that she had to like make sure everybody was doing, because if you have that extra level, it's just it. Yeah,
I remember being in the audience and watching that show, and I mean, it's impossible for me to turn off my brain when thinking about that sort of thing. But like, honestly, half the enjoyment for me of watching theater as an audience member is thinking about how I would go about doing it myself. And I remember like what captivated me the most about Sweeney Todd, besides like, I mean, the singing and, you know, Diana Rosario is just what a amazing voice she has.
She's incredible.
How I was cast in
it. Tommy was cast in it, and then but
I was initially casted as the Beetle, but due to working time restraints, I had to drop from it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But like thinking about how like, you know, you'd have to make sure that the safety razor was like so incredibly dull because like they were literally dragging it across people's necks, and if it even had an ounce of like a hint of sharpness, like you can still rip open someone's jugular with it. You know, not to get too morbid, but like that slide, you can like you turn around at the wrong angle, you're falling off. Like there was no railings on it, like. The safety on that show had to have been immaculate. So whoever your friend was, they did a good job because as far as I know, no one got hurt.
Yeah, she was the props. She got her first start as the props director in Heathers, and so she made that paper mache pig, which he ended up lighting on fire at the cast party, which was kind of fun.
Again, catharsis.
Went from making that pig to like literally making or like overseeing like just like the all of those hurdles. It was nuts. And I painted a lot of those bricks. I remember that.
Yes, I remember painting one of the walls. Like we dumped a bunch of gross stuff on Miss Lovett's wall.
Oh my God! Yes, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a.
I remember being how to. It was like I think my third year. I was taught how to paint bricks with a roller. So basically, like you take a roller and you're able to like run bricks up a wall with like a single stroke. There's like a really neat technique you can do to paint like dozens of feet of bricks in under an hour.
We definitely didn't use that.
I was gonna say. I remember seeing the bricks and be like, I don't think they did. I think they did all those bricks by hand.
Yes, we did, and I destroyed those bricks. But yeah. I love that. I've always loved the technical sides of theater. Like, I remember actually, my godparents are literally, they've been very, very involved with the Peterborough Theatre Guild. Because I grew up in Peterborough.
I've heard a lot about that. It's a really cool organization they got there.
It's incredible, and I got to my godfather. I remember he brought me into the lighting booth, and I got to learn about all of like that's where I started in lighting, which was so cool. So, and then I also did some ticket sales, and then for some reason that's how I got into curtain call doing doing front of house. Like that was my first thing, but
that's how we met. Well, that's how we became friends. I would usher for a curtain call.
Yeah.
So
he was hawking tickets. You were hucking people into seats. You know. How couldn't you be friends?
I just wanted to see the shows for free. So I was like, I'll usher, sure.
Yeah, well, twist my arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though I never did theater myself, I've always had a great appreciation for it.
It's always like, it's one of those things where you always hear people say, like, my high school was very much like, they poured a lot of money into the arts, and it really broke my heart that a ton of my friends were into the arts, but they were forced by their families to go into sciences. Or like law or medicine, and even though they're these incredible talents, I can literally count on one hand the amount of people I knew from my high school that actually went into the arts, and I'm one of them. Like but it boggles the mind that people who are in these like high science positions, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they want you to be successful. These are the kind of people that are like they're rich and they enjoy the arts. But heaven forbid their child goes into the arts. Oh, not our child. No, they're going to be. But it's like, there's such a weird disconnect there, and I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. Like if you got that talent, like society needs art. It is just as important as as anything else. You know?
Once again, bringing it back to the pandemic, how are people getting through the pandemic with Netflix? What is Netflix? Art.
With
TV and
the people
theater
who are producing
like
art
that.
during the pandemic, it's incredible.
Mm. And weirdly enough, to touch on the whole parents forcing kids to go into science, I was actually a classical double bassist, and my parents wanted me to do that, and I was like, I'm gonna do zoology. So I had the
Don't tell me what to do, Mom and Dad. I'm gonna go into biology, and they're like, you're no daughter of mine.
Yeah, but
you're gonna be a double bassist, and you'll like it.
My school had the worst theater program. We had zero theater program, and I truly feel like if my high school had a theater program, I would have gone into theater because I loved it so much, but I was just not exposed to it.
Me being in theater was it literally started in grade 9 as a fluke. Like, because you have to, I don't know what your high schools were like, but my high school, I grew up in Scarborough. You were supposed to take like either vocals, visual art, or drama. And I wanted to take visual art because I was really obsessed with drawing in like middle school. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to grade 9. I'm like, oh, I'm going to take visual art. Visual art was full. And as being like a barely preteen boy, I was like, well, I certainly am not doing vocals. My voice is not nearly settled enough for that to be possible. So I went into drama. Got an amazing drama teacher, and now I've graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Theater Studies. Like 6 years, or no, almost, 8 years later. Jesus Christ. Oh, I don't like that at all.
I feel like that's how it goes sometimes. The things you're most passionate about are flukes, like the Carthaginian war elephants. Like, literally.
Exactly.
So what's your favorite insect, Oren?
Yes.
Well, I've had a few people. I love bees. Bees are my thing. I have for a few years now. Not this year, unfortunately, because the price of wood has skyrocketed, and I haven't been able to actually afford any of it. But I've built. I have designs that I've designed like bee boxes in the past for mason bees to keep them. Eventually, when the price of wood goes down, I'm going to be building bee boxes to keep mason bee females because they are just fantastic pollinators. Back at my family home in Scarborough, we have a little carpenter bee colony there. When I was younger, I would bumblebees were like they would swarm our backyard, and unfortunately it doesn't happen anymore, and it's very visible, and it really breaks my cold little heart that they're not there.
You know what I love about this too? You just said a whole bunch of native bees, and I love that.
Yeah.
They don't get as much love.
Yeah, they would land on our beauty bush, and I would catch them, and I would build little terrariums out of cereal boxes and plastic wrap. And I would fill them with like all the flowers from my backyard, and I would take like 2 or 3 bees at a time, and I would introduce them to my little terrariums.
To the death.
No. They were all lovely. No, Kevin, if they started fighting, I would immediately cut that shit out.
First theater set, you would make it, and then you would make
No. So they would get in there. And they would basically have like this like buffet of flowers I would give them, and they would leave. And I remember they would just be so rotund with pollen, like just covered in it, just like twitching from how much pollen and nectar they had. And because like bees, like from what I understand, is like they go back to their hive and they do little dances to tell the rest of their hive about like where they've like encountered really good supplies of like flower and nectar and pollen. So little Oren was really convinced that they went back and were like, guys, you're never gonna believe what's happened. I got kidnapped by a giant. He fed me more than I could ever eat, and then he let me go. It's fucking crazy. But yeah, that's how I spent my summers. Is I would give bees as much pollen as they could carry and send them on their little fluffy butt way. I adore bees. They are my favorite. I will. Like I convinced my landlord to let me have a wildflower garden in my backyard just so I can grow pollinator flowers. I'd ride or die with bees. They're my friends.
That's a good choice.
Do you like the Bee Movie?
It's like asking if I like jazz.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you all so much for talking a little bit about like the areas you're working on and really passionate about. Now we're going to move on to the part where I make you make something.
You're the band.
Yes, I'm excited to hear the band. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes or so to come up with your art piece. It can, like I said earlier, can be literally anything. It can be your band if you want it to be your band.
I've got my jaw heart ready to...
Yeah, you can play me a song. You can make a skit or something if you want to. Or you can do like a pitch for a play or any kind of creative thing to communicate some of the science that we talked about. So yeah, I'm going to set a timer. So I'm going to disappear and I'm going to come back in 10 minutes and see what you got. So I'll leave you to it.
All right. Who's the lead singer?
I don't know.
Thomas and I once had an idea of like dressing an actor up in a sleeping bag, and they were like a caterpillar, and they would inch their way onto the stage, and then someone dressed in a bird outfit would come out, and like peck around, being like they were gonna like eat the bug, and then they would pull out a gun and shoot the bug, and then they would pick up the person in the sleeping bag, go into the audience, sit down, and inside the sleeping bag would be like fruits, and they would reach in as the rest of the play went on while sitting in the audience and like have a meal. This is real.
I think it would be interesting to somehow combine a bug day and like the whole idea of educating the public, how like I know there's a lot of negative connotations with insects and like bugs, especially like native insects. So like I'm saying Native Insect the musical.
Crane flies. Everyone, like, you know those really big flies that everyone thinks are like male mosquitoes, or like big giant mosquitoes?
Yeah.
They're not. They're just big dum-dums with big legs. And they're actually, they just vibe. They actually like...
The entomologists that are trying to boost like the awareness of the crane fly, but like the crane fly can like talk with them and can like interact with them.
That would be really funny, actually.
The oral history of the crane fly, the musical, on ice.
And like
imagine the crane fly and a bunch of little skates. What a
6
cutie.
skates. We would need 6 skates. Do we have the budget for that?
Tommy, do you still have those moth wings?
Tipulilampydoptera the musical.
We don't have the budget for skates for the crane fly. We don't have the budget for the kinky boots for the crane fly. Sammy came back.
Sammy, welcome to the
All right.
Oh
so
my God.
Your time is up.
Uh-oh.
Show me what you got.
All right, well, we don't have a name. I was thinking, can we quickly like brainstorm a name?
Yeah, no, you can.
I was thinking like something like Elmo's Firefly, and like the moth's name is Elmo, or I don't know. I was trying to think of like puns to do with fire. What are fire puns?
When the Fire Nation attacked?
Yeah, everything was okay until the Firefly got zapped. Ooh, that's not bad.
I put my money on the Tipulilampydoptera.
Yeah, I
like that
because
one
of how
too.
outrageously long it is.
Yeah, I do enjoy a long unnecessary name.
Right. That's our name.
Whatever you name it, I will probably make the episode title as well.
It's
Do we got a pitch for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's a musical.
On ice.
Right.
No, it's
On
not
ice.
It's not.
It depends on budget.
Well, yeah, it depends on whether or not our budget is 50 cents in a roll of duct tape or not.
Imagine you have as much money as you would like.
Oh, then it's on ice.
It's on ice. There's fire.
Mm.
And there's 5-inch heels.
Yeah.
Those are the kinky boots.
Yeah. Well, it's a love story about a beautiful moth who falls in love with a firefly because they think it's the moon. And we have a fun side character that's a crane fly, the misunderstood crane fly. Yeah.
That's actually like the jokey, chill prankster of the entomologist world,
Yeah. That's it.
The moth falls in love with it because it's like, oh wow, it's like a bright light source, but it keeps disappearing, and then I have something where like probably the firefly flies into a bug zapper, and it's like, oh no, or like one of these two captures it and drowns it in ethanol. Who knows?
It's very educational.
It's very dark. But the quirky character will be there at the funeral, like, I'm a crane fly.
Very educational when it comes to like native Ontario insects.
Yes.
Good, I love it.
There'll be a giant that keeps scooping up bumblebees for some reason.
I guess this is we could also have it hosted at the Bug Day that when we can go back in person.
Mm-hmm.
Full circle.
Yeah. Taking literally just
I think that's the perfect way to welcome everyone back to Bug Day.
Yeah.
Welcome to Bug Day. We have a musical.
$1 million production.
Yeah. We're gonna get who should we cast as the Firefly and the Moth? Oh,
Oh, the
jeez.
firefly and the moth.
Meryl Streep.
Kevin Hart's gonna be the
Is
crane
it
fly.
Kevin Hart?
As the crane fly, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, no, he's not really. I don't want to say this, but he's not. He doesn't have the long legs to portray the crane fly. Who's like a massive like actor? Who's like really big?
Dwayne The Rock
crane.
Johnson.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson could be
Crane
someone.
fly.
We're definitely employing Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
He's the moth. He just has tiny little wings on his back.
No, he's the crane fly. He's the crane fly with the tiny wings.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should have someone like very sweet and soft being the moth. Hugh Jackman can be in it somewhere.
Ooh.
Just X-Men.
As Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine.
We could have.
But he plays an actual Wolverine that comes in and tries to get the insects.
Swing, swing. I don't know. Patrick Stewart as the moth, and it's like very Shakespearean. We're just getting like these classically trained actors to portray a stupid bug musical.
Would you like to hear our reasoning too of why
I would love to.
Who needs reasoning when we got $1 million idea like this? It just speaks for itself.
with Bug Day, like one of the things that Lauren and I always love about it is this like we're starting with children, like, and we're starting at young ages and telling them bugs are good. And so it's like the idea, I think that's kind of where we spun off of, is that kind of just like, also, yeah, with the Ontario native species and talking about kind of the underrated, what did you call them, Lauren, again?
Charismatic mesofauna. That's what I call
Not them, but
Yeah.
They're the mean girls of the insect kingdom.
Like butterflies, dragonflies, really cool iridescent beetles, like the things that people really care about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sounds awesome. And,
Sam says, lying as she gets ready to scrap this entire recording.
I just remembered, guys. Do you know Star Kid, the ones who made like
Yeah.
Yep.
They have a musical with a bug in it. I'm pretty sure the main character's name is Bug.
Starship.
I want to be a Starship Ranger. I want to go. I don't know. It's about space exploration, and he's a bug or something.
I can get behind that. Bugs in space.
I saw it so long ago. I don't remember. But
Weren't bugs and like one of the first like creatures to be sent to space? Like they
Probably.
I think it was fruit flies, to be honest, actually.
Yeah, fruit flies were one of the first things, because I remember they sent like lizards up with like their tail missing, and they're like, because if lizards can't grow their tail in space, then like if an astronaut gets a paper cut, they're fucked. Like, because they didn't know, like they legitimately didn't know if space like somehow slowed down healing, so they sent out fruit flies and they all died because they're fruit flies. But
they weren't intending to send fruit flies. Just one of the astronauts had a banana in their pocket.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So the fruit flies got there first before the astronaut.
Let's see if fruit flies will survive this year-long trip. And the life cycle of fruit flies is 3 days. And they're like, our experiment failed. The fruit flies all died.
So we're almost at about 2 hours. So I think I might wrap it up. But yeah, that's it for the first episode. And thank you all so much for being on it. It was a lot of fun. I think we had a lot of like fun conversations.
Thank you for
Having us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we go, though, is there anything any of you would like to promote, like any social media or websites or anything like that?
Gay rights.
There you go.
I'm just kidding. It's Pride Month.
Bees.
Yeah, bees. Gay rights for bees.
Gay rights for bees.
If you're in Ontario, London, Ottawa, and Guelph all have bug days. I believe they are all virtual this year, but you can check them out. Just look up whatever city you're in, Bug Day, and find the nearest one. Or, because they're all virtual, you could just participate in Guelphs.
True, lots of options. I'll look up some and put some stuff in the description and stuff as well. Yeah, all right, awesome. So thanks again for being here. Thanks for everybody who might be listening. I'm not sure where this will be exactly yet, probably on YouTube and hopefully somewhere else. I gotta figure that little bit out. But yeah,
It's
hopefully
going right up on the CBC.
Probably not.
Going up on Broadway, baby.
Woo!
Yeah. Catch that Bug musical when it happens.
What's
It'll
the name again?
it'll be good.
Check it out. And what do we call it again?
What's the name?
Lapa.
Tipulilampydoptera musical.
Yeah, look for that coming out to Mirvish in September. Next September. We're gonna need at least a year to like.
Oh, you're gonna need some time, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Great,
Bye.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you all.